All right, I'm going to now turn it over to our guest presenters, Karen and Sophie.
My name is Karen Cook, and I'm with Austin Community College. And I'm here with Sophie Reynolds, and she is an assessment specialist with us. And she focused mainly on the programs that we CASA test in. And I think she's going to share the screen with you now. ACC serves students in various programs, including HSC, our college prep, and career pathways. And last year in these programs, we baseline tested over 1,800 students using reading and math goals, and ultimately we followed up progress testing those students. Most of our testing is online, but we do allow for some paper testing. Before COVID, we had worked really hard to try to integrate our students into the college. And one of the ways we did this was having them assess on CASAS at our over 10 assessment centers in the different campuses throughout Austin. So when COVID occurred and all our campuses closed, we quickly realized we needed to change our processes for assessing students while at the same time minimizing all the barriers our students face. And from the beginning, because we are a large program, we knew we wanted to focus mainly on a one-to-many testing session. And I'd like to say we've been successful with that. And by the end of this month, we will have tested CASA in over 500 new students. And today we're going to kind of show you some steps that we found that were important to creating this processes and some of the things we learned along the way. And I hope, even though we're a large program, programs of all sizes will be able to take some of this information and apply them to their program. So one of the first things, we kind of broke it down into full screen, yes. We kind of broke it down into different steps. And the first one is you need to choose your virtual platform, create a schedule, communicate with students. We did some training and had some shared resources and how are you going to have your students flow the day of testing, some of their tech issues. And choosing the virtual platform was probably a lot harder than we thought it would be because we had to have our platform approved by our university who had other platforms they wanted. So really investigate your platforms and know it has all the capabilities you need to test remotely. We decided to go with Zoom. It offered us everything that we needed. And ACC selected to use a paid Zoom account so we could have multiple hosts assigned to a testing session. We have one staff member we call like a scheduler who sets up our testing links and assigns hosts. And this allowed us to schedule multiple sessions with different staff members serving as a host and gives us a little more security knowing we can have additional hosts opening up our test sessions. But if you're a smaller program, you could use the one-to-one, the free account. I would just say you really just need to look into everything about any remote platform that you use. We also had to see how to set up the testing links. We had to make sure that we allowed for breakout rooms, to make co-hosts for our staff members. It was important too to make sure that both the main room and the breakout room had audio and video, and that became a problem with some of our choices, and Zoom did provide that, and that's why we ultimately went with Zoom. How are your staff and students going to move throughout the platform and to practice that, so really knowing your platform well makes for a smooth transition on testing day. How are you going to communicate in your platform? Like with Zoom, we had the host or the moderator, as we call them, cannot chat with people in a breakout room. So we opened up Google Hangouts as well. We're big into using Google at ACC, and we would communicate that way as well, and making sure that they had a screen sharing capabilities. So how does all this look? We started off with, we sent a Zoom testing link and information. to our students, and we're going to go into more detail how we do that. So the day of testing, the host will set up the Zoom, open the Zoom account, and they come into a waiting room. We customized a waiting room message where it actually says, "Welcome to ACC," so they know they're in the right place. The moderator or the host would welcome the student into the main room. And that's when we would check to make sure that they understand how to use the audio and video in Zoom. And then we kind of vetted a few questions for them. And one was like, what type of device do you have? You know, are you on a Windows 10, a Chromebook, or an iPad? We asked if they have the correct browsers like Google Chrome or Firefox. And then from there, we could kind of determine if they were ready to test, and we would move them to like Proctor A. If they weren't, or they might have had some issues downloading the app or to their iPad or something, or it could be a Zoom issue, we would send them to another like breakout room with tech support. So that's where we kind of address some of our tech issues there. But if they were ready, we send them to the proctor. That's where the proctor would verify the student's identity, check their environment, go over all the guidelines that, you know, CASA has provided for us, and we created scripts for that, our proctors, so they made sure they were in compliance with that. And once they were done testing, we kind of figured that there's a lot of work going into giving these students links. So why don't we register our classes too? So we ended up, after they tested, we would then send them to an additional breakout room where they met with an advisor or an instructor or someone who registered them for a class. And this worked very well for us. So this next step that we had to do was kind of create a schedule. You know, how are we going to, with our staff and the number of students that we wanted to test, how are we going to create a schedule that could handle all of this? And so we realized that we thought each testing session, we were going to start with 4 proctors in breakout rooms, along with like a moderator or a host and someone to help that host. And we thought, well, we could probably do 21 students at each testing session. And then we gave them appointment times. It might have been a morning session, and we had 7 students that came in at 9, 7 students that came in at 10, and 7 students that came in at 11. And when we kind of were thinking, what did we have to consider when we made the schedule? A lot of it, we had our fingers crossed that we did it correctly, but it ended up being good. It was like the intake time. You know, now you're in a remote world. As that moderator or host was admitting them into the main room, you know, we had to check their audio, we had to check their video, we had to vet them if they had any tech issues, and if they did they go to a breakout room? We also took into account like attrition. You know, HSE, some of our programs, we have a lot of people that sign up, but then they're not showing up. So we wanted to allow for that, so increase our number for those that would actually show up. And then the wait time for when they go to a proctor, how long does it take for the proctor to register their computer and get them started and review all the guidelines that CASA has and check their environment and check their IDs. And this really worked really well. We were surprised, but this number worked well for us. And we actually ended up, as we got better, we actually ended up increasing this number to 27. And then finally, we're at 30 right now. And then how with the scheduling, we had to think about, we had a lot of people involved in this process, how we were going to track all the parts and the people of the remote testing world. And like I said previously, we do a lot with Google. So we created a Google resource page for them. We also gave them calendar invites, and we made sure that this had the date and time. It has the session link, the host, the test administrators and proctors, and the additional staff. And for us, that was, we had tech help assigned, and we had we actually had some language support and our teachers and staff who did registration for them into their classes. And this is kind of what the page looked like. And at the end of this, we do have some shared templates that if you would like to use, we'll be placing those in the chat or the Q&A box of just some templates that we have shared. So as you can see, we have the date, like if it was the 19th, the morning, we have the Zoom testing link, we have our moderator or the host, we have someone like from our assessment team, and then we had assigned proctors and tech help. So on the day of testing, you know, everyone would open this page up, they had the link. In addition to that, we always had our moderator send a reminder email and a calendar invite like 3 or 4 days before, so everyone was on the same page, because we wear a lot of hats and we're really busy, so we really wanted to make sure that everyone had easy access to what their part was in this assessing. And now I'm going to turn it over to Sophie, and she's going to talk about our step 3.
Hi, yes, we had to develop a way to communicate all of this different information to our students. We ended up compiling everything into an email that we sent out after a student went through our application process. We included the technology requirements. We recommended all our students to have a computer running Windows 10, how to join a Zoom testing session, and how to download the Zoom app. The date and time of the session, when our students signed up for their date, they did not know what slot they were going to get until they received this email. And contacts for tech support and FAQs if they ran into trouble setting up their device. We also created step-by-step visual guides and short YouTube videos that students told us really helped in preparing for their testing session. This is an example of our email template. We created a short video on how to set up an iPad with the CASAS app, as well as the step-by-step PDF instructions for setting up a Chromebook. It is also important to note that even though we had strict technology requirements, we included in the email that all students had to attend the session, even if they didn't meet those tech requirements, because we also were able to give our students who couldn't test non-NRS classes.
And then the last part of this, or one of the step 4s, was training our staff and sharing resources. Even though we're a large program, we're like every program, we have many different hats, and training everyone and making sure that they were up to date on all our processes from past experiences. We know that that makes it so much easier. So we also have this shared resource page where we have easy access to our testing script. We had the link to eTest Online. We had a technology issue page where we kind of track different things and how we solved them. At ACC, we always, we make sure that all our proctors are trained through CASAS and their website training, as well as make sure we're in compliance with TWC, Texas Workforce Commission. But we also do our own training on our processes, and then we had those PowerPoints here as well, and like the links to the setting up the Chromebook. So this was important for us to have, to make sure that once everyone was trained, that they had resource to easily get to that if they have a question.
On the day of testing, we had staff arrive 30 minutes prior to the first appointment time. We had staff log into eTest Online and open the shared baseline resource page, including the script and testing roster. Proctors were then sent to their breakout rooms to wait for their first student. And the moderator or host greeted students and determined if they had the capabilities to test. After a student finished with testing, the proctor recorded the score on the shared roster sheet, as well as any tech issues a student had while testing. And then this is an example of our virtual testing roster. We had our rosters created for us by our data team But if you have a smaller program, it is very easy and intuitive to fill in yourself. And you can see we have appointment times for each student, a column for rollover scores. Texas Workforce Commission did allow us to roll over scores as we move more into virtual testing. And spaces for proctors to enter the reading and math scale scores. We also ended up adding columns for the type of device a student has and why they couldn't test if they were unable to test. And this just allowed us to track those students as they went through the registration process. And then, as you can imagine, we do deal with a lot of tech issues in this virtual world. To help combat this, we have staff at every session to handle tech issues. They are familiar with common problems and help not just our students, but staff and proctors as well. We have breakout rooms for them. We have breakout rooms for tech help. This helps us keep the flow of the session so we can help students quickly and efficiently and move them throughout the different rooms that we have. We also have a troubleshooting spreadsheet that Karen mentioned earlier that our staff collaborate on to keep track of common issues and their solutions.
And so I just wanted to kind of clarify a few things. One was with the proctors, and the flow of a session was really important to us, and we got better with that as we went on. And so as we sent students to like Proctor A, and they were setting up a student in a breakout room, and then the host would be admitting the next student into the main room, and then we vet them a few questions, and they would send that student to the Proctor B. You know, we would go through our 4 proctors. So by the time we got back to Proctor 1, then that proctor was ready to start another student. And they usually monitored or proctor anywhere from 3 to 4 students. I know CASA has a 1 to 5, and we would go that far, but we had a lot of attrition in our program and a lot of tech issues that maybe it ended up being maybe 1 proctor to 3 or 4. And that was good, but not to say we couldn't have done 1 to 5. And we might, as we get better, we're probably going to move to that. And I want to say, like, the hardest part of this was just starting, and we were always changing our processes, constantly tweaking our processes, and no testing session was really the same. They were all adventures, but I'll let Sophie talk a little more to kind of round it out about the importance of the YouTube videos and having our students as prepared as possible. But I will say with this, before I let Sophie talk a little, was like I said earlier, by the end of this month, we would have tested online in this way about 500 students. We have our last 2 days of testing are going on today and tomorrow for our fall registration. And we will have more registrations. We do 5 a year. So, you know, our numbers we're hoping to do close to what we did last year. We don't know how long we're going to be in the remote world, but we were able, out of the students that showed up and that met with us and joined a Zoom link, we were able to test most of our students. We had like I'm going to estimate about a 15 to 17% of our students that we were not able to test because of some technology issues, and that Texas Workforce allows us to put them in non-NRS classes. And then we are working with our college to have an iPad program where we'll loan them iPads and to test those students. So we were really happy with that number. But and then Sophie can fill you in on some more things.
Yeah, so the YouTube videos were really great. Our students gave us really good feedback on that. It was really helpful to have them sort of be walked through the process of joining Zoom and downloading the app, and, you know, going into like what registering your computer would actually look like. We went through a lot of those steps up to pretty much like putting in the registration code. And it was very helpful. Students came in, you know, they had iPads with the app already loaded on. They had their Chromebooks set up. They knew what to expect. And that just made the whole thing flow a lot easier. And then I just want to reiterate that our as more of our staff and proctors got experienced with this process, we were able to help more students and add more slots to our sessions so that we are now up to 30 students a session that we are able to test and register for classes.
Yeah. But thank you so much, CASA, for inviting us to do this presentation. And I hope that we are giving you just a little hint of things that maybe you can apply to your program. It is a lot of trial and error, but it did work. And we were happy with our outcome. I mean, I know the barriers our student face are amazing. And I think they surprised me. They always surprise me. Our students always surprise me, and they did even more so. And I think they were really prepared. But again, we will share those templates with you, and good luck.